Hey folks, this is Tony and welcome to some more game dev. Coming back again today to look at enemy behaviors. That's the big thing I want to try and dig into because we got the kind of enemies moving in and out of the fog working for the most part yesterday. I spent a good amount of time cleaning it up and kind of refining the animations so that it looks a little bit better. I'm liking the way that this is feeling. The enemies are kind of disappearing and reappearing. I've got it so that there's a slight delay before they start fading and the fade doesn't take the entire length. And I don't know, I think it's looking pretty good. There's no more like flashes. There was like a tint white that would occasionally get blown out. That's been resolved. So after much playing with materials, I think we finally have it in a good state. Now, whether or not I'm leaking memory or something, I'm still investigating because it feels like the way I'm using materials may be wrong, but it also may be right. So I got a little bit more that I need to dig into. Definitely wasn't, changing from transparent to alpha clip as often as I am now, and I'm doing that via a material swap, and so there is some questions I still want to dig into there. However, this is pretty good. The next thing I want to look at is making it so that these enemies have a little bit more that they can do. Right now, when we attack these enemies, they mostly just attack the player until they die, and there's not a whole lot else going on. And I'd like to make it so that when they reach certain thresholds, I would like to have it so they run away into the fog to try and find other allies to engage in combat. Whether or not that's going to work, I'm still not 100% sure on, but I definitely want to try it. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to start in this map, and we're going to turn off this initial cutscene. We had some cutscenes here for going north or south. I like this one because it has a couple of different enemies, and more importantly, it has a couple different enemy types. So I'm interested to see what we can do with this. Trixie in the realm indeed. Welcome. Okay, so let's see here. I would like to see about making it so the big slime is the one that gets this behavior, at least to start. So we're going to take a look at the slime, specifically the variant version, and it's got a behavior of randomize and then smash and chase. I think I want to change... No, I want to add another behavior in here, and we're going to do a ordered list. Ordered ability picker. I believe... Does this reset each time? Yes, so each time it tries to pick from this list, it will try and pick from the top of the list first, and then once it fails that, like it finds that that wasn't a valid plan, it will remove it and then loop through until eventually it does find a valid one. And if the internal picker count is ever 0, it means that we found no valid plan from this ability, which is potentially fine. I think that's an error right now. This probably doesn't need to be an error. There may be some situations in which failing this is completely acceptable. I do want to also look at replacing some of these debug logs as we go with a new debug logger I created, because I was running into some performance issues when I was setting up the fading in and out. This one, .instance .debug, no, .log. And I'm going to change this to be a log type of state machine, because this has to do with the enemy AI. Essentially, it's pretty straightforward. It's just wrapping the messages that we would normally log in a check to see whether or not this is a valid display message, which is just allowing me to flag certain debug types to not render unless I specifically want them to. And it's reducing the amount of spam because it was getting really bad, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And honestly, it took me like half an hour to build and replace the major culprit debug spams. But as we go, we're gonna keep running into more of these types of situations where I'm like, oh yeah, this one could be replaced. And I'm not going to go through the entire project and replace every single one, but I will remove them as I find them. Okay. Now, I'm going to rename this game object. So this is going to be ordered ability. Yeah, we'll just name it the component list. Maybe it gets a more specific name, but right now this is fine. And we're going to have it so this one should have a list. Oh, is this unit doing the thing? Yeah, where I have to click off and back on again. So we're going to make it so it has one object which is randomized, but we want to have something that it's going to check first. So it's always going to check this first entry and say, is it valid? Which is going to be essentially checking the stagger stat for that enemy. And if the stagger stat is above a certain threshold, we will do that ability. Otherwise, it will choose randomize. Now, we don't have that concept yet. We have a distance ability picker, which checks to see whether or not this is within a set distance. I think we want essentially the same idea, but for stagger. But stagger is a type of stat, so we can just make this a stat-based ability picker, and this could be for any type of stat. How does this know the distance to nearest foe? This gets calculated somewhere. It knows a reference to itself. And we give the plan the distance to the nearest foe, but we do not give the plan the nearest foe itself. I think I would like to change this. So that it has a reference to a nearest foe. Nearest foe. Which will not be used in all situations. Where does it currently set the self? After we've already planned everything. Interesting. And this is determining distance nearest foe here. Okay. Find nearest foe gives back a unit, and that's from the state machine. So I think we can just do telegraph attack nearest foe equals owner dot nearest foe. Find nearest foe. This will happen at the moment that the enemy plans their attack. So it'll find the nearest foe on their turn, but I think that's fine because this is when we do the action choice. So the enemy will choose what it's going to do based off of the moment it's deciding what it's going to do next. But this may not be the nearest foe when their turn comes around, but they'll still do the attack regardless. That makes sense. If it doesn't, we can always adjust later, but I think I like that pattern. So then inside of stat-based, we'll now have access to the nearest foe. And we will want to give this... Well, we want to rename it first off. So stat-based ability picker. This is going to want to know which type of target. Do we have a concept of target types? Hero, self. We have another enum we use somewhere. I'm not sure if it's accessible from this one, but inside of our actual abilities, we have a concept of... I'm just going to look in this folder. We have a concept of Ability effect target enum. What does this enum give us? Attacker target custom. I think I want to steal this because it's the same kind of idea. The ability picker is essentially doing something similar to what our ability effects would do. And by default, we'll have it target the attacker. So the attacker will be the AI in this situation. And we will write a... I guess it already has this concept. Yeah, do I want to reinvent the wheel here or use the infrastructure it already is designed around? Because I've been using a lot of ability effect stuff, so my instinct is to just go grab this enum, but it looks like it already has a target type. So the difference is that I think that target type is often used in the context of this is used to tell the plan who the ability is going to be performed against, and that's not quite what we're looking for. In this context, we're looking for which unit do we want the stat to be, which unit do we want to check the stat on? Also, this affixed ability picker, can it take another ability picker as its type? It cannot. It only takes a chosen ability. How did these chain? These chain by having base ability pickers. Oh, and a fixed ability picker is a base ability picker. So, okay. I see the pattern. So does that mean that this could just take another ability picker? This one doesn't. And that's because a base doesn't have a reference to one? No, it has to decide to include that. I'm just thinking about the recursiveness of this. Like, how are we going to chain these things together? Because I may not want to have the stat-based ability picker be the one that we decide the ability from. This might want to choose another ability picker. Yeah, it gets complicated, but like, let's just build it. We're just going to build it and we will figure out how to refactor it later. That's just how I work better. I feel like when I try and pre-plan everything out, I end up just getting myself tied in knots, and it's going to be easier if we just make it, and then we can decide on which enums we want to be using or any other context later. We're going to make a function. I'm thinking I might want to break this out into some sort of base class that multiple versions of ability pickers could use long term, but for today this will return a unit and it will only be used internally. Get target unit, and I'm going to steal from here. Same setup. Actually, let's just name it the same thing. Again, it can be renamed and better fit to this later. So if it's the attacker, we're going to want the self, which is still going to be this, because sadly we don't set the self earlier. Why don't we do that? Would it hurt if we set this variable? I guess we don't set it any earlier because up until now we've never needed to check the self. But there's no reason we couldn't set this at the same time that we're setting the nearest foe. And then we just need the unit. How do I get self? Self unit? Self unit. Perfect. So now in here we can just do plan the, and if it's the attacker type we've set, then it'll be self that we're going to look at. If it is the target, then it will be the nearest foe. And then I would love to have the same concept here, that if we want, we could just use a custom entity ID so that we could check any unit. So if it's like a boss fight and we have a bunch of minions, the minions could be looking at the stats of the boss, for example, to decide what their behaviors are. So this all seems good. I'm going to say if we get back null from this, which I believe is possible if the nearest foe is null or if we fail to find the entity. I think we just return, and then it'll move on to the next kind of behavior choice in the list. Otherwise, we're going to check the stats, which I'm going to need to do get component in order to find. We will get the stats component, store that for a moment, and then from the stats, we will want to be able to check specific ones. So stat types, and we're going to check this stat, and okay, we will check the stats and determine whether or not that stat type is greater than or equal to the required value. Else, if less than is enabled, we'll check to see if that value is less than or equal to the required stat. Cool. And that we want that because in some situations we'll want to check to see the HP might want to be something we want to see if it gets below a certain threshold. We want to choose a different behavior, a different ability. But if we want to do stagger, that number is going to go up. So we might want to see if stagger gets above a certain threshold. Maybe there's a more elegant way of setting that up, but a bool is going to work just fine for now. And this will be AI alert, find a friend, AI search, and this will be a stat-based ability picker. Now, this stat-based ability picker is going to want to choose an ability that it's going to target an ally. Preferred distance of 1. There's a number of ways I could set this up. Let's say it has no ability, so it's only going to try and move. How does the move work in terms of spotting a unit? Currently, it just checks to see if the thing moving is an enemy type and the alliance of the thing we're looking at is a hero, then we play the spot behavior. We could add extra logic in here that essentially says when the unit moves, check to see if its type is target enemy, and checks to see if the unit it's just spotted is also target enemy. So if they are friends, essentially. This doesn't care. Yeah, this doesn't pass any information in. This just forces the unit into the alert state. But it doesn't even need a nearest foe in that situation. So we could simply just say the unit we've spotted, if it's an enemy type and I'm an enemy type, tell that unit I've just spotted to also basically go into attack mode. Why is this setting a property? This currently doesn't do anything. Do any of them do anything? No, none of these have properties associated with them. And I think this is only used as part of the move. This may be dead code. I'm gonna comment this out, and if it breaks something drastically, we will hopefully know that this is where the problem is. Unlockable characters with the hydrate, appreciate. One small thing I want to change about this is we would want to know whether or not this enemy is aggressive, because I don't want enemies alerting other enemies if they are not already in combat. Is aggressive. Goes false. This will work for now. Probably a cleaner way to get this information, but I'm not super concerned. So if this unit is aggressive, and it has spotted another unit, and this makes sure unit is not null. So if it's spotted another unit that is of the type enemy, the same as it will alert that enemy and make it aggressive as well. Perfect. I'm not sure why Drixie is saying rip in chat. Okay. I do not know what I've done to provoke this rip. Oh, dead code. No, the dead code's fine. It's fine. Code can die. And then the trick is finding it and burying it. But it's totally fair. Oh, you're rest in peacing the dead code. Yeah, well, it happens. So we're gonna do... What telegraph crystal do we want here? For when an enemy is going to go find a friend? Don't think we're using this purple. No, that's the move. Well, maybe we start there? Because normally this is chasing the players when you see this. So maybe we can repurpose this for another type of move ability. Yeah, let's start with that. So it's going to go into purple. It's going to move towards an ally. It's going to require that this unit's stagger value is greater than 50. We don't need custom ID in this situation. We don't want to toggle less than. We can override the range if we want. But by default, I think this unit can move 3 spaces. Yeah, so if it, I'm fine with it just moving 3 spaces towards the nearest ally. Here's the trick, though. How do we know when it's done? Oh, this is an interesting problem. When it greets another ally, it kind of needs to stop chasing at that point. But when we're planning this ability, that won't be decided yet. So we need somewhere to store that this slime has found a friend and to not perform this ability again. Could do that with a flag. Our system has the ability to set flags at any time. But that feels a little bit like overkill. Could add something to the state machine. That probably seems like the simplest approach at this point. It's a bit of a catch-all, but we could maybe find a better spot in the future. Sure. Sure, let's say that that's fine. So we're going to come in here and we're going to add a private variable for yeah, this is too specific. Yeah, I want this to be way more flexible because we might want to do multiple different types of behaviors that have like a setup and then a done. Maybe it needs some sort of Blackboard property list. I don't want to use flags because flags get saved and loaded. Like, this is just going to create a lot of memory bloat and save data bloat to use the flag system, unless I built like an abstraction from the flags that made like non-savable flags that were only used and cleared within room. Like, there's a lot of ways I could do it, but I think I'm going to just build it this way first. I think long term, this is going to want to be a more elaborate system for tracking enemy behaviors over time. I'm going to just call this conditional, which all of these are technically conditional ability pickers, but we're just gonna call this conditional for now because I don't have a better name, so we'll keep it generic. And then the conditional one is only going to check the state machine. Get component faux state machine, which can be accessed from the self. And the faux state machine can then be used to check if it's found a friend. I made it private. It needs to be public for this context. Yeah, this is not great. It's fine. Build it, refactor it later. Let's just move forward. Okay. And then we can set this value in the same spot we were spotting our friend. So if we get in here, we can do, we should already have a reference to the state machine, and we can say if our state machine, technically speaking, it's impossible to get here because it is aggressive. In order for it to be true, the faux state machine would have to already be not null. So we'll just check, or we'll just use the value and we'll set found a friend to true. So if this enemy has found a friend, it will set that value on its state machine, so it will not do this behavior again. Now this is where the chaining starts to become a problem, because now I want to have AI found a friend check. But this one is set up to take an ability, but I actually want it to take an ability picker. So maybe this one is more based off of something like this. This takes a list. What are some other examples? Do we have any other good examples? This takes a list. Yeah, the fixed one is essentially considering itself the end of the queue. But I think for our context right now, we want to make one that simply takes a single entry, and this is kind of just like a part of its flow. So it'll take this. It won't be a list, it'll just be a single picker, and then it will try to pick, and that's it. Actually, this is actually really straightforward. It's just going to try and check the other reference. Well, I still need all the other context actually, so it'll only try and pick from its reference if this is true. So this one will have none of the other information except just a single reference, ideally. Oh, it shouldn't even need this one. What are the other ones using as their base ability picker? Does it need this still? I guess so, because it's overriding. So it needs the base class. So that should get rid of almost all of these variables. Yes. And now it can point to search. So the chain will be that it'll do found a friend conditional. This one will check to make sure found a friend is not true, which will be the default state. And the where were we? Unit site. This one is setting it to true. So once it's spotted a friend, it won't try and perform this action ever again, and it will always get skipped over. But inside of the search, it's also going to check to make sure a specific stat is valid as well. I think I want to make this stat-based one more similar to the conditional, in that it shouldn't actually reference the end It should just be another conditional down the route. Yes. Okay. So we're going to change this so that this is a base ability picker. And instead of calling this information, it's going to just get this value added here at the top. And then it's going to use it in these two locations. Okay. I'm going to have to rebuild this here in a second. So now this one is also just conditional and just has some conditional information. This can be changed to stagger above 50 as its name. And instead of this being a stat-based, this just becomes a fixed. And then this is the bottom of the chain. So this is now search. So the ordered picker will first try and check to see if it's found a friend. If it hasn't, it'll run the ability picker. And then if the ability picker has stagger above 50, yep, that's all right, then it will try and perform this action. We're going to do purple. Override range is fine, CT of 1, preferred distance of 1, and target will be ally. Okay. I think that should be all we need to do. And then this just needs to make sure that it's pointing at the ordered list. And if this fails, whether it fails on the first conditional or because stagger isn't above 50, it'll instead go to randomize, at which point it'll try and pick whichever one of these is valid. And right now these are only ever valid when the other isn't, essentially. Because this one has a min distance of 2, and this one has a min and max distance of 1. So it can only pick chase when smash is not valid, and it can only pick smash when chase is not valid. So really, this doesn't even need to be a randomize. This could also technically be an ordered list, but it's fine. Okay, so that's set up. So if we go to here, let's move this slime. Actually, I don't even think it matters. It's going to move in the fog now. So it's going to kind of move back and forth in here. So I was thinking it's pretty far away from our starting point, but it'll be somewhere in this kind of square or circle-ish area. It'll be going diagonally back and forth. Unlockable characters with the hydration. Appreciate it. All right, so then I want to just test to see whether or not we're even picking the right ability. How much louder is this one? Maybe a little bit. Maybe a bit too intense. We'll go down to this one. Arguably louder. All right, trying some new background musics from the selection. I've been kind of sticking to one set. Okay, so then from here, I just want to attach the Unity. I want to debug, and then I want to add a breakpoint to make sure we are getting into here at the right moment. I don't think this ability will do anything really. Because it's... I don't think I have logic set up to try and target an ally in this way. But we should be able to test... Okay, so it's choosing its next ability. Its stagger value is greater than 50. It would seem. We can double check that if we want to be really sure. Yeah, stagger value is 60. I'm pretty sure it's value 17. And so it's going to come into here. It's going to populate this with a null ability targeting a ally with a CT count of 1. Telegraph crystal. Oh, interesting. It will try and get a default ability of move, and it will try and target a foe by default if the ability is null. I don't think that's true anymore. Default ability of move is probably fine, but I don't think I want to default my target and change it. So we've picked an ability. We should be able to break out all the way to the top here. And now we're in the decide next attack. It's going to be setting our CT value. It's going to be setting our telegraph crystal to purple. It's going to be sending a notification that it's decided on a new attack. And it's setting its next plan of attack to null because we've just set the telegraphed. So it doesn't have a next plan, but it has a telegraphed plan. So if then we hit a breakpoint here, and we actually have it try and perform that telegraphed action, knows the foe is moving away. The attack of opportunity stuff might give us difficulties, but at this point, if it wasn't for that override on the target type, this should be saying target ally. I don't think it will try and do anything with the move ability that we've set. I think setting the default ability might actually be a bug as well. I don't know if we want to mess with that behavior because I think it's not going to be able to figure out how to move, and it's going to end up setting the ability to fall or to null because it doesn't have any way of like deciding that that's a good attack, quote unquote, because the move doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any kind of data for it to, for the AI systems to realize that it should do something. Should move. What is this doing? This is checking to see if it's a stationary plan of attack. It is not. And then it's going to move towards nearest foe. So this is where the logic changes. Here, we're going to want to check to see if the plan of attack is targeting a foe, then we'll move towards that foe. Else, actually, I might want to reverse this because we probably want to move towards the target in all situations except if we're targeting an ally. What were the other target types? Self, ally, foe. Realistically, we should have different behaviors for each of these. So if we're targeting a tile, we might want to move towards that tile rather than the nearest foe. I'm not going to think about that too much right now. We're just going to say that if it's target ally, we're going to make a new function. Otherwise, continue to do everything you used to do for all other behaviors so that we're not changing things without fully understanding them. So then we're going to grab this call, which was find or move towards nearest foe, and we're instead going to try and do the same idea but move towards nearest ally. Now how does this change? It's still going to want to get all its valid movement options. That's fair. The priority system doesn't matter right now. We'll figure out how that impacts things later. Oh, how much do I want to break things? How much do I want to break things? I think I want to break things. I think I want to really break things. I think this can be refactored, and I'm going to do it as 2 separate pieces so I have a reference to the original as I rip it up. But we're going to change this from find nearest foe, or we're going to make a new function that hopefully replaces everything, that changes from find nearest foe to find nearest, and it's going to take a target type. And that target type, I think, can just go in here. And then instead of nearest foe, we're going to just say nearest target. And then this will do all of this. We're going to just remove the priority system. It was kind of a... I was trying to make a system so that it could target the player over other NPCs, but I think that's going to be just more easily handled in the long run by just setting the NPCs to be neutral type in those situations. Or some other alliance type, so that they'll first try and find things of enemy type, and then maybe enemy ally could be another value for the alliance that we could do separately. But for the time being, we're going to remove the priority system because it was mostly a prototype system that I have not fully flushed out. And in this function, we don't need it. Interesting. This is just finding the player. Does it use the player? Like, it's doing this, but does it actually use it in any way in here? No. Again, I think this was me prototyping the priority system, and we ended up doing it just by checking the player state, essentially. Okay. This is a good cleanup, because I think I might want to just rip out the whole priority system and start from scratch later if it becomes required. But right now we never have more than just the player fighting you anyways, or more than just the player fighting. We don't really have, like, allies that join you. Something I've thought about, but not currently a goal. Log manager, debug log manager, instance dot log. We don't have a log warning yet. We're gonna make one. Again, continuing to replace as many logs as we can as we find them, so that we can kind of control the spam a little bit. Can I do this? This is now above 8 bits. Will it allow me to do that? I've never had a enum flag above 8 bits. Because this is 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so that would be above 8. I might be smart enough to know how to handle that. Let's try. Break stuff. We will say that this is an AI log type. Just want to make sure we replace nearest foe in every spot we can. So there should be no reference to foe at all anymore now. So this should work. Should track down the nearest. And then in here... Is that all we have to do? That might be all we need. Because it's going to try and find the nearest. And then it's trying to search the board. And then it's going to do a little bit of logic to try and figure out the best move option. Does any of these functions use nearest foe at this point? They don't. They're just looking at the score of each option. Does this use? No, I think everything else should just work. Yeah, because this is essentially searching from the nearest target's tile outwards, and it's basically going to span the whole map, kind of building a path from the nearest target. And then we're essentially going to find our start tile for this enemy, and we'll check to see whichever locations are closer or have a lower distance number, I would assume, is what this is doing. Is there any kind of concept of distance in here? There's angle. Get score. Best distance score. I don't see where it's being set, but... yeah, here. It's doing a bit of, like, trying to figure out the preferred distance that it wants to be at, but essentially it's going to score each tile to see if it's at the distance away from the target. And it's not even using the target anymore. Once we've searched from the target outwards, it's just using the distance that's stored on each tile to determine how close or far away that tile is from the original search location. Yeah. Okay, so I think this should work. So this should find the nearest ally and move towards it. And it'll do this, I think, forever until it finds an ally. We're not covering the case in which... ooh, yeah, we didn't consider that. We need one more conditional. Inside of the AI's brain, we're going to need one more type, which is going to see if there is a valid target for this type of ability. So if we go into AI, IT slime, and look at its behavior setup, plan dot, we need to get access to the state machine. This is a couple times now that we've needed to do this. What if we just store this in here the same way we're storing the self? believe the owner of this state is the faux state machine. So then inside of here, we can check the state machine and find nearest of whatever our target type is. And I believe if this returns null, in this context, it's fine. We just know there is no valid target of that type. And so we should just return. I think all abilities that can't find a target should just not pick that ability, essentially. That seems reasonable. And then while we're here, we're also going to fix up the... Was it stat-based? No, it was the conditional one, which I do not like. But now this can just do plan.faux state machine instead of having to do a get component, which saves us a little bit. And then this can go away. Well, we'll do that. Maybe there's a chance it could still be equal to null. Which will be, I think it's base state. I don't think I need to do this. Yeah, it should be null by default. All right, cool. Now we don't need to worry about the AI trying to move towards an ally when there isn't an ally on the map to move towards. It just won't choose that option. So if you get an enemy to stagger value 50, it won't just run away to find a friend because there isn't one around. Oh, wrong button. I don't care. Actually, I don't think I need this breakpoint anymore. I do want a breakpoint here, but not at that top level. Okay, now let's find that other slime. There he is. They are super broken, though. Okay. So we have fundamentally broken something. It is no longer able to perform any attacks. Will it actually still get to... No, even above 50, it will no longer do anything. And we are getting errors, but it looks like those errors are it just failing to find valid attacks, which can just happen. So how did we break that? Somehow we've made it so that it cannot perform any actions. And I don't think it's specific to the prefab, because I'm pretty sure the little mini slime was also seeing this behavior as well. Is it literally just that first line of code we added? Is it unable to find a foe of the correct type? Here. I guess this also implies that we expect there to always be a state machine. Yeah, target type is none. Is that because its ability is null? Yeah, and we used to expect that it would change its ability type to foe. So it might just be a data error now. We were kind of relying on that automatic setup. So we look at base enemy. This is foe. This doesn't have anything. We look at mini slime. But we want to look at the variant version. Let's close the prototype version so that we don't get confused, because these are our new and improved, better versions. This one is AI dash attack, which is type foe. AI chase, which is type foe. And this is the ability it's trying to perform. So both of these are foe typed. Unless somehow this is... No, this doesn't have a foe related to it. So how are we getting into a breakpoint where it's none set on a mini slime? Target is definitely none. Oh, because the target is being set here. The plan hasn't set the target type yet. Oh, okay. That's fine. So instead of looking at the plan's target type, I guess we're supposed to be looking at this fixed ability picker's target. Sure. To see, yeah, we don't want to populate it yet, but we do want to check this value. Okay, I see how I've made that mistake. Easy enough to fix. Hopefully easy enough to understand. Let's see if that fixes it. So when we first reveal this enemy, it should go into either attack or chase. It's doing a chase. It's trying to attack. Attack of opportunities still work. It's choosing the correct abilities each time. Alright, that looks good. So then if we go over to this green slime, it's trying to chase. And then when we get it to stagger value 60, I believe, right there, that should be above 50. So the next thing it's going to try and do is purple 1, which isn't actually moving towards me. It's actually moving to its nearest ally. And then it's come back again. Interesting. So it moved away and immediately came back. It almost feels like it found its friend. Where is this walking to? This is just walking around in this little area. It looked like it only got over to here. I would have expected it to do that action multiple times, because it should have remained true continuously. Okay. Let's see what's happening. Get rid of the little one, which if we keep running into odd problems, we can just turn that one off. Now here, this is all okay. I want to add an extra breakpoint. Oh, we still have this one for the stat check. Cool. I want to validate that. We minimized too many windows. Let's zoom in. So here it's going to be targeting the foe. That's fair. And then we're going to attack it twice to get its stagger value up. We'll move. Now at this point it's picking the ability for the stat. We also know that the only thing using these are this enemy, so we should be able to validate its behavior pretty consistently, because there shouldn't be anything else using these objects yet. I say yet. We'll probably do more behavioral stuff long term. So we know that it's picked this. It's trying to find an ally. It should have found something. We don't care what it found at this point. We just want it to make sure that it has an ally. It's going to go through, set all of this up. And then when we go look at the state machine, where was that to? Foe attack state. In here, if we were to add a breakpoint, we should see that it's now going to try and move towards its nearest ally when it does this action. And it does find the nearest ally, and I'm assuming that that is... Or sorry, it sees that the target type is nearest ally. And then it's going to come in here and try and find a foe. We moved down too far. It's currently searching, trying to find one. We'll add a breakpoint here. Did it find one? It did. It found the other mini slime that is currently on tile 416 over in the fog, far away from it. Cool. So it found that target. Because it's not null, it's going to try and figure out a pathing. We're going to let it do a bunch of work. And at the end of the day, it should find a move position. Yeah, we're inside of this section. It's going to pick the best move. It's going to go through all of its options. It's going to try and figure that out. We should get down to here. There is an early return out. We'll double check to make sure we're not hitting that. And we have found that the position we want to move to is 1016, which I'm going to guess is going to be the closest to our ally. So that's all fine. Now at this point, it's going to try and plan for next turn, because it's moved off into the fog, and now it's trying to figure out what to do next. This is where we want to really kind of investigate. It's going through all of the plans. It's going to check find a friend. It's going to make sure it hasn't found a friend. It says that it has. That's the breakpoint we missed. So for some reason, this got set. So it thinks that it has told the other ally to spot someone. And because of that, it comes back. So that lines up with the behavior we were seeing. This does look correct. Oh, even here we're seeing it. It thinks it's aggressive. Its type is enemy. What is the unit it's spotting? Is it spotting itself? Yeah, it's 100% spotting itself. How is it spotting itself? It's looking forward by an offset and then getting that tile. Oh, is the offset 0? Offset's -1. Okay. It's fine. Basically, one of these is causing it to spot itself. Why and the timing of that, I'm not entirely sure on, but we can catch that. We can just make sure that what's the fastest way? I think we want to make sure that this tile does not equal our current tile. Yeah. And that'll make sure we don't check ourselves. That is funny though. It's finding an enemy. So it has spotted someone. And that's interesting because I wasn't seeing the spot ability, but I guess the spot ability can't be played more than once. Yeah, okay, that all lines up. Let's give this another shot. So we move forward, deal with the little one. This one shows up. We hit it twice. We can even hit it a third time because it won't stagger it in a time. We miss. It's run away. Something in the fog has been alerted. Now at this point, I should imagine they both move towards me. Yeah, they're both chasing me. Okay. And I get both of them coming out the fog looking for me. Neat. There were some situations where it couldn't figure out a valid pattern. A little odd, but I'm not super concerned about that. In terms of edge cases, there is one more that I have not considered. We definitely want to make sure that the enemy also doesn't go to enemies that are already in combat. Yeah. We're currently not making sure that that foe This is going to be tricky. Yeah, because we actually don't care about nearest target in this situation. We actually care about nearest target that is also not aggressive, aka in combat. Does this need to be more specialized? I'm not sure. This feels very, very incorrect. The other issue is technically whether or not a unit is in combat or not is determined by its foe state machine. But this function should be generic and shouldn't care whether or not we're talking about enemies or players or even NPCs for that matter. So the fact that I have to check the foe state machine is also odd. Maybe there should be... Maybe whether or not an enemy or a unit is engaged in combat should actually be handled by the unit, because that's more generic. Whereas the state machine is mostly handling the enemy AI. But the enemy AI needs to know whether or not it's aggressive and is determining whether or not it's aggressive for whether or not it's been engaged in combat. So it is an AI related like state machine thing. I think I want to be extra friendly here and say if you're trying to find a target and it's... No, I want to rewrite this whole thing. This doesn't make any sense. Maybe this needs some sort of like conditional function that can be passed in that can determine like other parameters about whether or not this is a valid target for this specific ability. Like maybe this needs the plan? Like find nearest for plan. Valid for plan. And then it takes the target. Well, it doesn't even need to take the target then. It can just take the plan. And then this can determine from anything inside of that plan structure whether or not the unit that it finds would meet the criteria of that ability. Yeah, I like that. Let's do that. Find nearest valid for plan. And then this won't take a target. This will take a plan of attack. And then from the plan, we can determine what the plan's target is. And then we're going to need an extra thing in here target combat state. What do I want to call this? Combat engagement. Participation. I'm going to call it combat engagement. And we're going to have it be out of combat, in combat, either. And then the plan can have a combat engagement targets combat engagement. Targets required combat engagement. Sure. And then inside of here, we can check the plans target required combat engagement. Which likely needs to be its own function at this point, because it's going to be a switch statement. Is valid combat engagement. And that's going to return a bool for whether or not it is or isn't. And it's going to take the plan. And it's also going to take the current unit, which is our current target. It's going to try and get a faux state machine from that target. If this equals null, we're going to be gracious and say, yeah, it's valid. If it doesn't have a faux state machine, it's valid for engagement because it's not an AI, essentially. And then otherwise, we are going to check the plan's required engagement. If it is either, then we're just going to return true. Yeah, totally, you're cool. Move on. If it is out of combat, it's going to return faux state machine is aggressive. Is not aggressive. And then in combat, that's not quite right. Why is this breaking my brain? This is out of combat requires that is aggressive is false. And this conditional is requiring that is aggressive is true, which again is the same thing as writing this. Okay, no, I was on the right path. My brain just took a second. My subconscious was on it. My conscious brain took a second to catch up. So if is aggressive is false, then it's valid. If we're in combat and aggressive is true, then it is valid. And then finally, we need a final version, which we're going to just also say is true. Again, we're going to be gracious and say, by default, we'll let you in. And say that this is a valid target. And this is going to need the plan. And it's going to need the unit. Yes, because the unit is the current occupied other. Okay, yeah. So that works out. So this is also used now inside of here But instead of taking in the target, oh, now it needs a plan. I didn't think this out fully. Yeah, maybe that's worse. Like, it feels good to use the plan container, but I don't really want to be populating the plan here in order to just check whether or not this is valid. Yeah, and it's not even the plan that cares about the combat engagement. It's actually the ability picker. Because this ability picker is deciding this information. But it needs to pass that information to the plan because it will eventually be used. Here. So when it gets used to try and actually perform the plan needs to know. Okay. We're going to make these variables the same name. And we're going to just change this so it only takes the two pieces of information it needs instead, which is going to be the target type. We're going to go back to that. What was it? Targets for this context. Target. And then it's going to need the combat engagement variable. And then the is valid will take just this information. And keep things consistent. Put this here. Get rid of that. Shouldn't need the plan for anything else. Nope. Good. And then, is that everything? Did I fix everything? I want to fix this too. Well, again, consistent with the naming of this variable. Okay, now this needs to take in this piece of information as well as the target. And then where this is used inside of the state machine, it will also need to just ask the plan of attack for what the target is. And it will need to ask the plan of attack for what the required engagement is. Last piece of the puzzle, I just want to double check. Default here is going to be out of combat. I want to swap these around so either is the first one on the list. This could also be renamed to none, so it just doesn't have one. Maybe that's better than either. It's more consistent with my other enums in the project. We can also give this a common engagement of none by default, and we can do the same thing in the ability picker as well. Cool, just to make sure that it defaults to none. Because in most situations, we don't care. Just thinking about performance, or at least slight performance optimizations. I guess we could change... Where'd it go? Here. In most situations, it'll be none, so I don't even want to call this function and go through all this logic of getting the faux state machine if we don't have to. We'll leave this in the case statement in case somehow you get here and use this function without that setup. I'm just wondering what... We could also just put it at the top of this function. This feels overly complicated. Technically, it's a little faster to not call the function, but whatever. This happens once. Like, well, that's not true, actually. This is happening as part of a search. So this is happening a lot. Sure. We'll do this. Because this will get called first. If it ends up being none, we'll go into here. Otherwise, we'll go check this information, which will call this information again. But mostly to make sure that if this is used in any other locations, it is still good and still usable. I guess, whatever. I'm like pixel pushing like very, very small changes in terms of milliseconds. It does not matter. I say that, but the search call is done a lot across the entire board. It might actually matter. This is one of the very small situations in which our game actually calls a lot of code. Oh, they ended up on the same tile. Well, that's a fun bug. Can we reproduce that? I've seen that behavior before, but I have not been able to like consistently create that. I don't think we're going to be able to though, because the AIs move with like some random cadence to which tiles they decide to go to. So it's unlikely that we will find a behavior. Yeah, unable to replicate it. Sure, we're gonna do that. And I'm gonna stop fussing with that function. This is working. In order to validate the out of combat stuff though, let's see here. If we go into IT slime, and we look at its search behavior, right now it's none. If I say in combat, this will only move to enemies in combat, ideally. So we should see that it cannot perform this ability. And when we get it above 50 stagger, the slime should just continue to fight us. Good. So we'll hit it 3 times. Yeah, and it's still fighting us. Perfect. And if we come in here and say it must be a unit that is out of combat, which is the actual behavior we'll want to leave, it should hopefully still run away and find its friend in the fog. that all seems to be working. Cool. I'm liking the way that feels. Is there a better play pattern that I could learn from this? I think because he goes and gets a friend, I actually don't want to get his stagger up above 50 too quickly. So he currently has a CT of 7. So if I do bash into bash and then do... No, that still gets him above 50 too soon. Actually, that might be kind of devious, actually. I like that. Does it work out if I bash 3 times? And how much damage do I take during that process? So we move up, we bash this enemy, we bash the enemy again, and then we bash one more time. Then we can slash twice, stunning it. But we took just as much, if not more, damage by bashing 3 times than just like having the enemies engage. I think, because we got down to 18. If we let the slime run and find its friend... Ooh, managed to line it up. Why did you both go here? This is going to be using... Because I can't test. I wanted to test... Okay, let's get the test working, and then I'm going to dig into the code, because it's probably a very simple check somewhere where when it's trying to decide on the tile it's going to, it doesn't make sure that it is not already occupied. I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward fix, that it's just not validating its destination. It's probably validating its pathing, because we don't see them overlap each other that much in a lot of other situations. I think I'm supposed to take out the little slime first, because it only takes 2 hits, and then I can stagger this one. Yeah, we ended up getting down to 12. I think it's going to vary, but it looks like it doesn't make that big of an impact. Maybe bashing 3 times is slightly better, because then you can stagger before he runs away. But actually, you know what? Then we would have went and fought the little slime, and this little slime would have gotten 1 attack on us anyways, and we would have ended up about at the same amount of health. So I think it doesn't actually have a noticeable impact, but you can control the enemy fleeing to find friends, but it's not helpful. I'm going to minimize some of these. We don't need all of these open right now. If we had another ability in here for this guy, we had taken this out because it didn't really matter before. It was like, he's just going to sit there and attack us every turn, so why have multiple abilities? But if we have him do essentially the same attack as the mini slime, right? What does the mini slime do? We can save that. It does this little dash attack, which realistically is now just attack is probably a better name for it. So if we just steal this wholesale, bring this over here, and say the mini slime can either do a big attack in the form of AI Smash, or it can do a little attack. And the only difference here is that this one has a power of 25, and this one has no power defined, so it defaults to 10. So this one's a fair bit more strong, or a fair bit stronger. And then this was... We'll delete this one and just use this variation. And this one has min chance 1 and 1. We can just add this to the list of randomized options. And now it'll try and do one of these two because they'll both be valid. And this one will do less damage, but arguably has... they're similar, because this is taking 4 CT to do 10 power damage, and this one's taking 7 to do 25. So I think this one's slightly more efficient in terms of getting a little bit more damage for the amount of turns it takes to execute, but whatever. Cool. And then if we do the same test, I think depending on whether or not it's doing red or green will change my decision making. So we still take out the little ones with no effort. There's no thought behind them. They're just little friends. But this guy, in this situation, I can hit him for 3. I can hit him for 3 again. Now he's going to run. And we can't stagger him in time. That's actually fairly consistent to, like, we've been able to get that pretty often. Oh, which one are we even targeting? Oh, that's funny. Okay, I want to give one more playtest before we dig into that bug. Or one more run, because I'm trying to figure out if, like, if it's doing green, should I be doing bash? Like, we're really, like, I don't think this is the type of behavior I want, to be clear. I don't want the player to have to, like, min-max these very small, minute, super crazy complicated decisions. But I also don't hate the idea that there is, like, a right and a wrong choice here. Like here, I could do 2 slashes, but that won't fill that bar up enough. We're not telling the player the exact numbers either. Like, I have the benefit of being able to know what the power or the stagger values of each of these are. I guess you could figure that out as a player, but I just don't know if that's even fun. But yeah, bash I think is doing 20. Actually don't see my JSON data for the abilities. Let's see, Jason's ability design data. Let's open this up, bring it over. 30 power from a slash, 15 for a bash. Okay, I was actually even wrong on how much this is doing. So we did 15. So if we were to do a bash into a slash, I think we're still going to be 10 short. Yeah. I feel like in most situations, it's going to be difficult for the player to kind of stun the enemy. But I think that will also make the increase in stagger power for some of these initial abilities feel really good from the skill tree. Cool. I'm going to leave that alone. We can always turn off that extra attack we added to the slime if we're finding it's not working. But I'd like to see if we can figure out what's going on with the AIs moving into the same tile. State machine. We are looking for the attack state. Did I pass it? Visual Studio must have... No, I passed it. It's right there. So I think it's doing this action. because it's just trying to move towards the player. So it's going to be doing move to nearest foe. It's going to search through the board from the foe, and it's just checking to see if tiles are walkable. Technically, we could do is occupied here, so it doesn't search through occupied tiles. This checks to see if it's got content or content that plans to leave. How does it know if it has content or if it... There's some sort of system for knowing that the tile will be occupied, isn't there? Because we know content plans to leave, but is there not something that's... Something plans to move here? Is that the fundamental thing we're missing? When a unit plans to move to a tile, it definitely tracks that. Like it creates a plan. Has a planned direction, has a place, has a planned function. It's used in 6 different locations. Yeah, it plans to go to locations. That's for the movability effect. Does only the player plan? I built this system a while ago. I had not realized I had not finished flushing this out. This predict, I think, only happens for the player. I don't think the AI calls this predict. It just does the move. So yeah, only the player plans. And even then, when the player plans, it sets its planned target. Oh no, it sets a plan here. Okay, there is planned content. Interesting. But we don't say that something is occupied if something plans, if it has planned content. What is this used for? Just for spotting the player, for seeing if the player is on that tile, or if the player plans to be on that tile. Is that the only time we use this? No, we use it a lot. Oh, we don't use get planned tile that much, but we directly reference the planned content in several spots. So the AI knows about the planned content when it's trying to target the player, essentially. So yeah, this was all built around the player, but I had assumed... What is this? When we get tiles in range. Okay, so when we search the board for movement options, anything that is occupied or has planned content or is its own tile, we remove from the list. Okay, so we are removing any potential movement that the AI would do. Yeah, so if the player is planning to move to a tile, the AI knows not to go there. The problem is just that when an AI plans to go to a tile, we don't do anything. They must know, though. Like, At some point in the AI director, when we're looping through all the units, it comes up with this plan, and at some point down here, it starts constructing move abilities to move to each of those locations. Oh, I guess the trick here is actually that the player only moves one tile at a time, but the AI moves multiple tiles. So we could say whatever your final destination target is, we can queue up on a move ability to go there, but we could also flag it as having this unit as its planned content. And it should already choose not to go to the place the player is moving to, and the player always gets priority when choosing target tiles. If I is less than distance, I don't know if this is the right spot to do this, but if I is equal to distance -1, then the tile we're going to set plan to this unit dot game object, because it's always the content. That might break everything. I have no idea what the implications of this are, but we will figure them out as we test it. Oh, why did you come back? You did not alert a friend. Is it because it saw the unit it was planning to move? But even then, it should have still found it. Yeah, okay, weird. I'm not sure why that broke. It may have been a existing bug unrelated to setting the plan that we just hadn't seen, but it was pretty consistent for like 4 or 5 attempts there without seeing that issue. So it feels likely that whatever I did by setting that plan has somehow broken. Yeah, it came back right away. So yeah, something about setting that plan breaks the way that it works. With spotting its friend. Don't know how that works, but I said it might break in phenomenal ways by adding that. And that definitely looks like a phenomenal way of breaking. The problem is there's so much going on inside of the brains of the AI. There's so many like, it's not even that complicated, to be fair. I want to preface, I'm going to start that sentence with it's so complicated, but it's really not. But it's complicated enough that it's going to be a pain for me to try and figure out exactly why giving them the ability to plan their actions so that other AI know is causing issues. Yeah, because now it found its friend right away. Interesting. Okay. Well, we're at time. This has been our 2-hour stream. We will be back again tomorrow. I think we have done what I set out to accomplish, that we have found a bug here at the end to do with pathing. And the bug is very straightforward. It's that the AI just doesn't set themselves as planned to go to tiles so that other AI know. And they would, if they had the information, filter out those. Where is it? Pick best move option? No idea. Okay. Point is somewhere in the... Oh, wait, it's the movement, isn't it? It's inside of here? No. Oh, it's down here. This line in my find references, the last thing I searched. So if it was setting itself to be planned, other AI that go after it would know that that tile has an AI plan to go there, and it would remove it from its list of possible tiles to move into. At least the final destination. So there's some amount of like extra AI logic I think I need to build so that they can properly notify, like, I'm moving through this tile, or I'm planning to end my turn on this tile, so other AI don't try and do the same. But I'll either do that off camera or we'll cover that another day. Question from YouTube before I go. Off-topic question. How much money have you made from selling games so far? 0. This is the first game. We've spent about 5 years building it, and we have not put anything out. Trying to get to a first thing, but this is very much a hobby. I work professionally as a video game developer. That like is my career, but for actual like selling games with my wife Trixie, like, we have not made any actual profit at this point. In fact, we don't really have any things on Steam. My hope is that we can get chapter 1 figured out by the time I'm done with this vacation I'm on for the next week and a half now. We're most of the way through the 4 weeks I had off from work. But I'm hoping by the time we get to the 19th, we can have chapter 1 done, and this game is currently planned to be 8 chapters. But the fact that it took me 4 weeks to build chapter 1, timelines are not looking good at actually getting something out anytime soon. But I don't know. It's been 5 years of building tools and systems, and it is very quick to build stuff in my kind of infrastructure. I don't like the engine within the Unity engine that I'm kind of building. Like, it's really solid and built to make multiple games in the long run, but right now it is still just trying to work on that first piece. But I don't know, maybe it accelerates in the long, like after we kind of build one, but right now very slow. Again, hobby, so not super stressed on timelines, to be perfectly honest. All self-imposed. Okay, and with that, and unlockable characters with the hydrate, I got that one. Okay, yeah. I think we're going to call it here. As long as there's no other follow-up questions, we are going to be back again tomorrow. We will do some more streaming from 2 to 4, and then that's basically it. I mean, just continuing to build stuff. I think we made a good chunk of the enemy behavior stuff. We've got some new pieces to play with. Hopefully we can refine that. Most of this is just finished chapter 1, though. A lot of these tasks aren't complete until basically I've done everything. But I don't know. That's it. I'm going to call it. Thanks, folks, for hanging out. This will be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.